Hi, welcome to the New York Parrot Literary Corner. I'm Dustin Pickering, your noble and honest host. Today we have Natalia Trevino, who has won several awards for her poetry and fiction, including the 2004 Alfredo Cisneros de Moral Award, the 2008 Dorothy Sargent Rosenberg Poetry Prize, and the 2012 Literary Award from the Artist Foundation of San Antonio. Her first novel in progress, Drinking the Bee Water, is a testimony of an immigrant mother's journey to make a life as a servant in the U.S. while separated from her daughter. Natalia became a naturalized U.S. citizen at the age of 15 after living in San Antonio, Texas, since she was 4. She graduated with a BA in English when she was 21 from the University of Texas of San Antonio. 2 years later, she received her Master's of Arts in English from the same university. After almost 2 decades of teaching, she went back to school to study fiction writing. She graduated the University of Nebraska's MFA program in creative writing in 2010. Her jobs have included teacher, stay-at-home mom, a single mom, small business owner slash bookkeeper, and now assistant professor of English at Northwest Vista College, where she works with students of all levels. Thanks for joining us today, Natalia. How are you?
Hi, Dustin. Thank you so much for having me on the show. I am so grateful for you and really happy to be here.
That's wonderful. So, are you still teaching, or that bio might be a little old? I don't know if you're still.
Yeah, I
Okay,
am.
great, great.
I work as a professor at Northwest Vista College now. I got my little title, and
Mm-hmm.
that's a nice thing. And I work with students in teaching Mexican American literature.
Mm-hmm.
I also do a lot of work with students who are not necessarily college ready, but close to college ready,
Okay.
and helping getting them what skills they need so that they can find their voice. So I'm really lucky that I could take that
Right.
sacred work that we do as writers and poets and bring it into
Mm-hmm.
the classroom.
Excellent. That's wonderful. And is that novel still in progress, or is it done, or still in
Yeah, that
progress?
novel has quite a story behind it itself. And so it is, I just finished some edits on it this summer
Mm-hmm.
and sending it to my agent again for her review, her second review of it. And then hopefully we're gonna wrap this up this year. Um, it has been quite a journey.
Excellent. So, for those who are, I guess you could say, novices in listening to the program, what is the relationship from the author and the agent? What does the agent do as far as editing and making suggestions and so forth about the manuscript?
That's such a good question, Dustin. And I have learned a lot. Actually have had two agents for the same book,
Mhm.
and so I've learned the styles that there's a range of styles of interaction and commitment and participation. Um, Most agents, from what I understand from my friends, of course they'll read the whole book before they will take you on as a
Mhm.
client. They really need to believe in the book as it was given to them,
Right.
and then their job, of course, is to try to find you a publisher and a contract that is kind to you. Um,
Mhm.
and so my first agent didn't really give me detailed feedback. She gave me global feedback and a lot of encouragement, and this is going to be great. It's going to work.
Mhm.
But when I found her, I already had a book deal, a book or a contract offer. And so I just wanted her to help me read the contract and just represent because the contract was 20 pages long.
Wow.
And I understood about two sentences of it, honestly. And I thought, I just don't know what I'm signing. And then she tried to work with with the publisher, and they didn't like her over 20 changes to the contract, of which I understood four. And um, it wasn't good. It was the beginning of the decline in that relationship.
Hmm.
But ultimately, she told me it was a very cruel contract the way it was designed. So she was able to do that for me, to help me say what another author told me was to dodge a bullet. In that it would, that she said the contract is written so that if your book is successful, you will not be successful.
Hmm.
And yeah, it's interesting, right?
Right.
Um,
And that was
and
that with a
then
big name publisher or one of the major publishers, or was that that wasn't an independent
no,
press? Was that
it
it
was it
was?
was it was a regional press, and I don't want to.
Yeah, I don't want
Yeah,
to blast them.
no,
The
no,
gossip.
not at all. No, they're
Yeah.
wonderful, and they're wonderful. So I pulled out amicably, and then my agent just really was kind of going into an unstated retirement
Mhm.
for a while, and without really talking about it, and nothing was really happening. So I was approached by someone else
Mhm.
because she read my poetry and really loved it. And she said, I found out you're doing a novel, and a relationship started to grow there. And she helped me understand that the novel just wasn't ready. It just wasn't ready.
Mhm.
And she gave me some prompts, and I really literally revised it with a total revision of how to enter the story.
Mhm.
And this is a recent event, and I completely rewrote it, which I never thought I could, because the book has been it's just exhausting. But
It
I
is
love the
exhausting.
story so much. Yeah, I
Mhm.
know you're writing, you introduce books, you've done so many books, you've done a lot, I know.
Mhm.
So um it's a process, but I love the story, and I'm committed to working on it.
Excellent. Good luck with it. It sounds like a fabulous plot and a wonderful process in creating it. So you have a title called Virgin X. Now, I'm curious about that. I read a little bit of it and I found it quite interesting. I was just curious what you could tell us a little bit about how the book, what it explores and how it uses the theme to explore that process.
Yeah, well, after working on my novel for quite some time, I really, and after Lavando La Dirty Laundry came out,
Mhm.
I really thought I can't write poetry anymore. I just don't have that. It just felt gone. And when I saw the image that's on the cover of my book, and can I show it? Can I
Yeah,
just put
feel
it up to
free.
the screen? Yeah.
Yeah.
So when I saw
Oh,
this
wow.
image just came across my Facebook scroll, and this is a drawing um, by J. Michael Walker, a Los Angeles
Mhm.
artist, and it's a pencil drawing, and it's
Wow.
incredible. It's incredible. And I saw it, and I was sobbing, and
Mhm.
I didn't understand why. But as I started to think about why, I know it had everything to do with my grieving for my grandmother, both of my grandmothers, really, in a way. She's a combination of them, with the iconic twin size bed for the Mexican widow, the single that's the only furniture in the room. The painting in the room is of her child, of course, and in this case it's Jesus. The little
Mhm.
Mexican calendar over here. I mean, it just had this, and
Mhm.
her little tennis shoes.
Mhm.
You see those? My grandmother. I mean, so and then she's sewing on the edge of the bed, which is a posture that I saw both of my grandmothers working on quite often. And it just released um, this buried emotion that I had, because my grandmothers, since they both lived in Mexico, and I grew up with a kind of an on-off button of my life in Mexico and my life here in the U.S. And because we traveled quite frequently to see them, well, twice a year. That's frequent for a lot of immigrants, actually. Um, so when my grandmothers, they both became my best friends over my young adulthood and into adulthood. But when I lived here, I just wasn't in contact with them. And this painting just made me experience all the grief and loss and their own divinity and their eternal life. So seeing sort of the Virgin Mary as in a posture like my grandmother's, it just created a incredible a cleaver went through my whole brain and my heart, just opening it up and letting me see the divinity that is in all women, that their life-giving force. And this goes all the way back, not just to Mary, the mother of Jesus, but of course, La Virgen de Guadalupe, who is Mary, the mother of Jesus, but she's also accepted as a goddess in Mexico and is connected and accepted as the goddess because she is Coatlicue, who is the mother of the earth, the mother of the sun. She's the mother of the moon. She is the mother and of the universe, really, and has all life in her, and is also all death. She has a necklace of skulls. She is all powerful, and she was accepted by indigenous people as La Virgen de Guadalupe, the goddess they could pray to, because she looks like their goddess. So there's a mirroring in them that I really wanted to explore in this book. And that mirroring exists all the way to contemporary women and their life-giving and life-taking powers.
Fascinating. So you published this with Finishing Line Press. How did you become in contact with them?
I think they had a call for it was a chapbook contest,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm pretty sure I saw it in Poets and Writers magazine. And I was just looking for the chapbook to find a home, and I was happy to try it as a contest. So it turned out that it was selected as a finalist in the
Mm-hmm.
contest, and went from there. It was a very fast process. It was a very easy process. They're wonderful
Mm-hmm.
to work with. Kind of a lockstep. Like if you're gonna have a question about this, email this to this address. If you have a question about that, email. But they have it all mapped out and met our deadlines and worked with me, and were very open with edits that I had for the book. And sometimes you don't get that. And very kind about allowing me to choose the cover. I was able to contact the artist and say, would you allow me to use the genesis of these poems? I know you write ekphrasis, and this whole book of poem is an ekphrastic response to this to this piece of art, as well as other artwork. Because what happened in the research for the poetry is I didn't even know, my own grandmother, Abuelita Socorro, was very devoted to La Virgen. And I knew she was devoted to a virgin that looked like a rocket ship. And that's it. I didn't know the name of the virgin. I didn't know what she was. I just knew she looks like a blue rocket ship. So I started Googling her, finding out about La Virgen de San Juan de los Lagos, who really has these blue wings, and she's just quite a sight. And as I learned more about her, about the Virgin, I learned more about my grandmother's spirituality and connected me to her so deeply. And so Finishing Line, like I said, allowed me to choose the cover, but first I had to contact the artist, and he said, I need to read your book first to see what our Virgin will be peddling.
Right. Never know what somebody might come up with, but that sounds like it. Yeah. What I read of it, I found it captivating. Once you start to get involved in the literature of it, it becomes I read most of the book. You get really acquainted with a lot of things in there, and I did notice a lot of the mourning process going on and throughout the language, and it was really a really fun read. Fun as it can be, and intriguing. Learning about the various things you discuss in the book. So would you like to read a couple of poems from it, or?
Sure, sure. Um, I'll read um I'll read the opening poem. It's Latinx and it's not about La Virgen, but it's about the X.
Mhm.
We have Latinx, Chicanx, and the concept of X became very interesting to me after I took a workshop with Natalie Diaz a couple of years ago, and she gave us a text that analyzed the history of letters. It's a text called "The Mysteries of the Alphabet," and what I looked at was summary table of X, and what is that letter? What does it mean in history? It's
Mhm.
really interesting what I found out about the X and how it resonates with what we're saying about gender and inclusivity with the X and multiple identities. And one of the things that I found out, Dustin, is that I thought I could learn about all the different virgins and then write a poem for each one of them.
Mhm.
But there are 22,000 virgins, more than 22,000 virgins in the world.
Mm.
And I said, I'm writing, 50 poems about one and a half virgins, connecting her to Coatlicue. So I realized she has so many identities, and what is a way to capture it but through this concept of the X? So
Okay. Interesting.
this is this is Latin X.
Mhm.
We learn X represents fishbone removed from head and tail, rib cage meant to swim the full weight of the oldest bodied creatures so they could glide, eat as if in flight. Mysteries shows early glyphs of X as crooked ladder, vertebrae deprived of muscle, skin and fur, deprived of face or scales, without teeth, without tongue. X is 10, number for digits, spot on a map, oblique signature, my grandmother's. Her X, a skinned cross turned on its side, lacking the sheath of letters, of cursive, those curves that would allow her to read the full sadness of her name, Dolores. Letters without cilia, providing locomotion to the seas of hurts and light that would come. My friends say Latinx, conquer nomenclature, replace the A, the oldest drawing of an ox, encompass O, earliest signifier of I. O, carved into soft stone to say, see this here. We have Malcolm, lady, generation. X must have been the first to equal MC squared, 24th letter. This carving of an eaten ribrack had lived to order the direction of organelles and skins taut length of cuts of bodies we quarter and grill, of gills, of wordless, motherless bodies we cage in cages made of wire X's at the border, of lungs holding them in place, insisting on the melt of soft tissue, on knife bone survival.
I like how you question language quite a bit in there in different ways, and it's just fascinating to me how language, we use it to signify certain things, but its history is so different sometimes than what it actually is saying to us in the moment. And that's what you're really kind of exploring there, I think, in a lot of ways, is what does this letter mean historically, and what have we used it for, as you mentioned in the beginning of the before you read it. That's quite interesting, and it was beautifully read. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for being such a good listener, Dustin.
It's
You
wonderful, a wonderful
you
poem. It's a
really,
wonderful one.
really are
Wonderful, yes. So if
reading
you,
and seeing at the same time.
yeah, it's what I do, I guess, you know.
What you do, yeah.
Thank you
I've
very much.
seen your show.
If
I
you'd
know you
like to
do that.
read another one, feel free.
Thank you.
Hmm.
So since I was talking a little bit about my grandmother and learning about this this Virgen de San Juan de los Lagos,
Hmm.
I became mesmerized by the imagery associated with this Virgen, and what I was saying earlier about I thought I could never write poetry again. It the emotional connection combined with the incredible art that's used to create these icons, these artifacts just gripped me by the throat. And so what to do but write about it, hopefully with clarity. So I became fascinated by the way they dressed her. And then they dress her up in different times of year, which is interesting. So at her shrine. So this is Virgen de San Juan de los Lagos, ¿Cómo te vistieron? Which means how you were dressed.
Hmm.
1. Hundreds of years after you left the body, they dressed you in blue, a clay stiff mantle lit by a gold weave of stems, curled scorpions' tails, tipped with rose petals in the middle of the sky. It is a dress only your mother could have imagined as she swaddled you in rough blankets, as she carried you to water, to tend the grit collected between your fingers in the creases of your palms, as her hands formed a leaking cup to warm the water before it touched you, because cold made you cry, how she wanted others to see you if she could display the threads of you clearly on a cloth, if she could sew the pattern that burned in her chest, illuminate the flood that nearly burst her ribs each time she realized your weight was outside of her body, when she learned your face was the sole purpose of her arm, her chest, hands, how she wanted a cloth so wide the sky goddess could see it float above dusty bridges, stretch into paths where some would pass too quickly, where promises might not be empty, where washed hands dripped in blood, defend you if needed with arrows and unearthly swords. 2. So the woodcutter carved you as a queen, God's very mother. He'd seen royal robes stretched tight at the neck, wide to the ground, wanted a summit of blue, wanted people to think of sails, imagine a thick wind had stretched them into a full skin. Say your dress is ocean, las alas de la agua, a sparkling horizon of sea, a reflection of the constellations, those that multiplied in your mother's chest as she fed you her own beams of human light.
I'm seeing that a lot of way we model our divinities after nature, and especially, our various forms of humanness that we have within us, and then the reflection of, you use the sea and the sky and the blue, and you kind of get it to the heart of why that this color is important in that context. Quite interesting poem there. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you so much. And it was, seeing trying to tap into the divine feminine here, and
Hmm.
the life force here, and tapping into the spiritual and scientific idea that the ocean is our mother,
Right.
and how this Virgen de San Juan de los Lagos, with her blue, amazing skin robe,
Hmm.
it's not hard connection to make once I
Right.
thought about it a lot and spent a lot of time observing.
And
So
it sort
thank
of translates when you kind of reflect deeply on something. A lot of times that language just pours out and bam, it just happens. Because as a poet, we obsess over things, and we like to just reflect a lot on, and just this energy just kind of culminates, and it ends up hitting the page like, bam, there it is. And then of course you do the editing, the other part of the process. But it usually, just for me, I find that when I'm really developing an idea in my head, when I dwell on it quite a bit, when that moment just strikes where it's like lightning, it's just like bam, I've got to get it out at that moment, and it just floods out of me. So I think that's fascinating process, really is. So we have about a remaining, 8 minutes or so.
okay.
If I was going to ask you about the anthology that you had I believe, a piece of fiction in called Mirrors Beneath the Earth. I was curious, what that is such an unusual title. Do you know anything about what the theme of that anthology was?
Oh yeah, well that was edited by Ray Gonzalez, and
Okay.
that is, I think, the second publication I ever had, and I was an undergrad a long, long time ago. It's a short story called Cardinal Red.
Mhm.
I worked on it forever as an undergrad, and I drove my
Mhm.
friends crazy, asking them to read it and read it again. And I was terrified to take it to workshop, but I did. Um, the Mirrors Beneath the Earth title. It's a Chicano. It's an anthology of Chicano writers. It's the
Mhm.
first time I was labeled as a Chicana, and I did not know what a Chicana was. I knew it meant Mexican American, and I know I'm Mexican American, but and Mexican, but American hyphenated only through some paperwork. Um,
Right.
and so it definitely ties into the spiritual idea that um, the earth is our mother, and that these stories are reflecting who we are, reflecting our history, reflecting our hearts, and reflecting us. Um, and so Ray Gonzalez, it's his selection of title. I mean, I'm fascinated by it too, because it makes us think about our literature not as just a mirror of who we are, which we know that. We know literature mirrors us, and we mirror literature sometimes. But sometimes these mirrors are buried, and need to be uncovered.
Hmm.
And so that's true very much for a lot of Chicano literature, which these are stories that aren't told in mainstream, and
Right.
that are a part of American life and American
Mhm.
culture. They're just often erased, sadly, because of the
Right.
historical racism that exists.
Yeah. Exactly. And now we have what they call the uh, banning or oppression of the critical race theory going on that now that they're doing, which is really disturbing. That I'm against all kinds of censorship in general, unless it's posing a threat or a danger to civic life. I don't think that you should mess and tamper with what people can teach and learn. And so I think it's very much in the spirit of the old school kind of racism coming back, I think so.
It's
It's
very true.
yeah.
And these bills have been coming in and coming at us forever, ever since Chicano started to say, we want to tell a story. We've been educated in the US
Right.
too, and we have not seen ourselves in the textbooks, and that story is not accurate. And we've
Hmm.
been pushing back for ages. One big pushback happened not that long ago with the Libro Traficante movement in
Oh
Arizona,
yes,
when
yes.
there was a House bill that
Mhm.
banned Mexican American literature, and all of our poets were suddenly banned in
Right.
Arizona. And there was a pushback against it. And And yeah, and now this is happening across the country. It is very troubling,
Right.
because we by by looking at race, more accurately, and race relations more accurately, we're giving our students an honest look at our country,
Right.
and including more of them, and
A
that's so
deeper love.
important.
And not just honest, but deeper. And I think that deepening people's imaginations and thoughts about the way we relate to each other, can be effective in promoting people's civic behavior and to be more, kind to each other. I mean, if we understand each other's history a little bit better and where we're coming from, a lot of people I think that are, seem to sound racist or something, maybe just stupid and they just don't know, they don't understand. And if they did understand, maybe they would be a little more relaxed and like, oh, okay, I get it. I'm receptive to this now. And then you got the violent ones that are not reachable in a lot of ways. So thank you for
It's
joining us on
it's
the
very
program.
troubling. Yeah, thank you so much
And
for listening and for including me in your program.
absolutely, it's been
I
really
needed to
nice
be a part of
talking
it.
with you. If you want to say a couple of thank yous and maybe leave us with some wisdom about literature and what we can do to keep writing in the spirit of the times, we have a little extra time for that. If you want to do
Thank
that.
you so much. Yeah, I want to remind us to think about our roots as we plant our feet in the ground,
Mhm.
as writers, as listeners. And as we plant our feet into the ground and sense our roots in the ground, we find out that our roots are very connected. And roots need other life forms in order to exist, and we can feed each other. And
Really.
I very much would like people to remember that,
Mhm.
to feel confident in their roots, and also allow those roots to come through their body and all the way up to the imagination to form the stories that they feel are hidden
Mhm.
and need to be told. And thank you as well. I definitely want to thank my publishers at Finishing Line Press. I want to thank anyone who's ever written a review of my work or included my work. I'm so grateful for that, including you, Dustin. And
Yeah.
the idea that I ultimately share with my students and through my poetry is that we are enough, and we need to treat each other that way.
That's a wonderful saying. We are enough. That's beautiful. That should be a banner. I think people should be holding that up at concerts and thank you
Well,
again
when we
for
treat each other
joining.
when we're not, it when we
Right.
treat ourselves like we're not, there are
Exactly.
big
That's why I'm
problems.
thinking that's a good inspirational like quote to use. So thank you for joining us again, and it's been wonderful and pleasant talking to you, Natalia. It's been wonderful. I think we've learned quite a bit about poetry and language, and the process of culture, and even
Thank
at the end we tapped it off with a little bit of talk about racism and some of the nefarious ways that people were oppressing stories out of people, which is any writer should not be in favor of that kind of behavior. So but
you.
thank you
No.
again for joining us. And this has been the New York Parrot Literary Corner. I'm Dustin Pickering. We had a wonderful talk with Natalia Trevino, and we have an anthology coming up. If you guys want to take a look at that, you can get in touch with me, paypal.me/nyparrot to purchase a copy early on. Just take a look at our flyer. It's $17 plus $3 shipping in USA and $6 international per copy. And please subscribe. We're looking for 1 million subscribers. That means if you have not subscribed out there and you're watching this program, please do hit that subscribe button. Thank you very much for joining us as viewers, and keep sharing our content. This has been the New York Parrot Literary Corner. Thank you for joining us today.